Black Lightning's back.
Hello again to all and welcome back into the channel for this week's review of Black Lightning Season 4 Episode 12, which starts Chapter 1 of the Book of Resurrection, titled Crossroads. Now, if you are new to the channel and you have not seen this episode, please be warned, there will be spoilers as we discuss the events of this episode. And what an episode it was, complete with all of the bells and whistles that a two-part finale needs, as the show seeks to go out with a bang. Likewise, I couldn't help but notice, as well as pick up on, that tangible thread that ran from Jefferson's opening scene and what he shares with Jyn about what happened to his father, Jyn's grandfather, at the hands of Tobias, and what ended this episode with that crazy cliffhanger. While many of us might sometimes scratch our heads at the decisions of the characters we've invested our energy and time in, we still feel for them to some degree or another. And this episode brought back some of those old feels that we used to get with Black Lightning, simply because of the dialogue that takes place, as well as even seeing new connections being made between our core characters. The first heart-to-heart takes place, as mentioned moments ago, between a bitter and worn-out Jefferson and a broken-hearted Jyn. Now this, as well as other important dialogue, has been lacking from the show as of late. Perhaps the creators saved it for moments just like this, I'm not sure. And I'm not sure if we the audience knew if Jyn knew what happened to her grandfather, and how Jefferson had to watch him die by the hand of Tobias. Plus the fact that within the show historically, Tobias has never really had to pay for what he did. That's a very heavy and complicated detail, and it does give more weight to those dreams that Jefferson has been having this season. And likewise, the decision that he made at the end, it makes it seem all the more inevitable in a sense, given what Jefferson has been through personally. But don't worry, we'll cover a few more important details about this that I noticed once we get through the rest of this review. So after Jefferson and Jyn's sit down, we join Gambi and Lauren, Anissa and Grace, as one half of the team try to put their heads together to come up with more options to stop Tobias. Lauren manages to track down some information on the facility where the metagenes from the container were harvested. And while this portion of the plan was still being developed, Tobias takes yet another step, securing even more power as he performs a hostile takeover of the Shadow Board. Tobias is going full beast mode at this point. But this did make me wonder just what the finale will have in store that will deliver on a plausible chain of events that will not seem too convenient or too cheesy to wrap this whole thing up. But I'm really curious to know what you guys think, so let me know in the comments down below. Now, another detail that I did kind of appreciate was brought forth in this episode during Chief Lopez and Shakur's scene was a history of Chief Lopez's husband and how he died due to meta powers. Now, we don't really know exactly how, but this now gives more context to her season-long obsession with metas. Now, Officer Shakur does manage to talk her down initially, but that frantic scene with her later on makes sense due to the pressure of her being the first female police chief. Now, both Jefferson and Jyn, as usual, handle their battles lone wolf style, as Jefferson calls Tobias direct to meet at the same house where Tobias killed his father, and Jyn goes after Red. Why exactly, I don't even really know. Even TC himself was not going for it. But if one were to take into account that by the end of this episode, that Jyn, who can maybe get an E for effort, has always strived to be a superhero, brings in Red, as well as the fact that Anissa and Grace blew up the metagene facility. The grip or leverage that Tobias held over the Shadow Board was contingent on the fact that he had access to metagene technology and certain other metas at his disposal. But all of those pieces toward the end of this episode has gone up in smoke. And so finally, at long last, a win for the Pierce family. And it only took 12 out of 13 episodes to do it. Now, before we get back to family, another important plot thread that happens is Khalil/Painkiller facing off with Ishmael in a one-on-one duel to the death, as well as yet another hiccup in Tobias' plans, was him willing to kill off Looker, which in turn gives her incentive to testify against Tobias with the help of Agent Mason. Now, another portion of this episode that's important to the plot is Lynn lending her knowledge and expertise to Lauren to help find the emitter. But what I found most interesting is the answer to the mystery of the Prometheum beneath Freeland. As it turns out, when Lightning used her powers in Season 3, it transmuted the surrounding bedrock into Prometheum. Now, one other thing that came out of the meeting with Lynn and Gambi happens when Jefferson comes in with an idea to erase Tobias' short-term memory so that he won't remember their secret identities. To this, I just simply say,
Nigga, what the fuck you doing?
Or at the very least, he should not have gone in alone. And I've said it here on this channel, Jefferson never had what it took to take on Tobias. But perhaps Khalil does. However, the one scene that this season needed desperately is when Jefferson talks to Lynn about his will and the apologies that come afterwards from both of them. Everything that needed to be said was said, and it seemed to have given the characters that necessary closure that they needed. So seeing as how this is the penultimate episode, I thought that I would spend the remainder of this review giving you guys some predictions. Now starting with Tobias and Jefferson. Jefferson has yet to score a legit win against his arch nemesis Tobias. So in order for him to just simply be the hero of this series, just for namesake, he has got to somehow pull out a win. Now given what just happened between Tobias and Jefferson, it didn't seem to go Jefferson's way. So Khalil has got to step in with an assist, mainly because he has a bone to pick with Tobias as well. Now will Tobias live? I do believe so. He's been such an indispensable villain, it would be a shame just to kill him off. Plus, with Painkiller starting his own series, why not make him a later threat down the line? So instead of his short-term memory being erased, I think his long-term memory will be erased. That way he won't be taken out by the Shadow Board as well. Because, well, you know, he tried to take it over and everything. And before we leave this topic, I wonder if Maya from Painkiller series has any ties with the Shadow Board as well. I think Gambi and Lauren will become a thing, which is fine, it's whatever. Now the one thing that does have me kind of wondering, I already know Jefferson and Lynn are gonna get remarried, that's a given. One of the main things that's in the air for me is the fate of Jyn and her powers and how they've been acting lately. Will we get some kind of crazy Tyler McClane send-off? Is that possible? Maybe that's not a prediction, maybe just wishful thinking. But like Lynn said, there are no happy endings. Now if that's foreshadowing or maybe just realistic thinking, we'll find out. Because some way, somehow, Khalil and Jyn need their reunion as well. So, I think that does it. Stay tuned in the Content Meta for more reviews just like this one. And stay on the lookout for those real takes, which will drop between Monday and Tuesdays. And if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. It really helps the channel. And until then, see you then.